Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our November 14th meeting of our Government Relations Committee. Attendance is taken and we are all here, I believe. So number 2 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. So, Councillor Oakley, Mayor Bailey, all those in favor? Okay, declaration of pecuniary interests. Seeing none, if anything comes up, just let us know. Number 4 is adoption of the minutes from our previous meeting, which was on September the 16th. Councillor Oakley, Mayor Bailey, all those in favor? Okay, we're just speeding along here. Okay, so that moves us to staff reports. 5.1, our Roma conference delegation requests. CAO Newton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegation requests are now open for Roma, and I have 2 suggestions for consideration of the committee. First is being the new hospital. I have spoken with Bonnie Cam, and she is willing to attend a delegation with us on the new hospital, and I would suggest that I work with her and to prepare that delegation to bring it in front of council for approval and consideration if committee is in agreement with that. Secondly, I would like to at least put on the floor that we request a delegation with Minister Rickford to discuss HDI and future developments in the county.
Mayor Bailey.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair, to CEO Newton. What are we going to do about the fact that some of the hospital information is still to be confidential? And the people that would be at the delegation, which are my 2 councillors here and yourself actually, has not heard, I mean, you may have heard, you're not supposed to have heard, about what's going on with the hospitals. So how is that going to work?
Through you, Madam Chair, and that's why I'm suggesting that we work with Bonnie. She'll know appropriately what can be asked for in public and what we need to have as immediate requests to the province. I would imagine that those are going to be more related to making sure the money is in the 2025 provincial budget, and that the planning be moved or expedited through the provincial approvals. But again, I would work with her and make sure that everything that we put forward is information that can be in the public realm.
A follow-up, Madam Chair. So she would do the talking then. She would know the taboos and the lines not to, because it was explained very clearly to us at the last meeting that it's to be the minister's new proposal is in jeopardy if things don't go in the right order. So we would be there, the 3 of us, and Bonnie would do all the talking because she's the only one able to. She's the only one with
through you, Madam Chair. That's what I'm suggesting. Bonnie has made the offer, and I think having yourself and councillors there to reinforce her points, I think would go a long way. And like I said, she's generously offered to come up with us for that delegation. So I think it would be a great idea to take her up on it.
I think that's great. That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley.
Through the chair to the CAO, I would also concur with the delegation to the Minister of Indigenous Affairs as well. I think that's a relevant issue and something we should definitely meet with him on if possible.
Okay, any other suggestions? Councillor Oakley?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. So I believe we all 3 of us got an email from Councillor Bell. So he had the suggestion of also going to ask for increased funding for our our family health team. I think if we're doing the hospital delegation, though, that might have to take a bit of a back burner since it's the same ministry. However, I do think there's an opportunity to delegate to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing on consistent funding for new housing projects. One of the biggest issues that we have through social services is some of our projects are subsidized 25% with grants, others are 0.4%. And thus it makes it incredibly challenging for us to plan going forward and being able to build housing efficiently. So I think that's worth investigating. Additionally, I think along that same lines out of Councillor Bell and I's and the mayor's sitting on social services would be delegating to the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services on updating the funding formula for social services, as that funding allotment has not changed since 2018, and there has been a significant driver for the increase of that municipal budget there. And one last thing would probably be to reach out to the MTO on Bishopsgate.
Thank you. So CAO's thoughts on Bishopsgate, is it a good time to push that one, or what's the kind of the status of everything that's going on there?
Through you, Madam Chair, we're still in talks with them, quite honestly. Those talks have been more focused on Rust Acres Road in recent months. I can check with operations to see what the status is, but there's certainly nothing solid in place in terms of an agreement with MTO, and given the fact that Rust Acres Road is going to go at a likely rapid pace over the coming years, it would be timely to start those discussions again. So.
Excellent. I also had some discussions with some folks from the Federation of Agriculture. And speaking of MTO, they have some concerns about Highway 24 and wondered if perhaps it was worth bringing that up with the MTO again. There's safety concerns trying to get equipment across the highway or up and down the highway. It's crazy busy. So I don't know if we have to maybe kind of think about exactly what the messaging might be, but I know Highway 24, safety concerns with Highway 24 come up for a number of reasons, but they had flagged that with me earlier this week specifically. Mayor Bailey?
Through the chair, to the chair, what would we be asking for?
I don't think they have anything specific there. I don't know whether roundabouts or lights or something that would make it safer for those vehicles to get across the highway. Because they'll sometimes have to sit there for 20, 30 minutes at times if the traffic's heavy because their machinery is big and slow. So to get across or to get turned, either that or you have to go, like there is only one way across the river realistically with your equipment. So you kind of have to come out like kind of Glen Morris Road, McLean School Road out there. So yes, I don't know that they have any solutions. They just know it's a problem. And they like the ministry to look into it. Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Madam Chair, I wonder if this can also dovetail into last I was talking with the Federation of Agriculture, there was some concern expressed on I guess the ministry is trying to push folks to get their equipment if they're transporting longer distances onto flatbeds, but then the actual getting that AZ or DZ, I forget which level of license for it, there's a lot of costs and paperwork that comes with that, so it's pushed people away from going that route and instead just driving on the road, which can be unsafe. So I wonder if there's something there as well in regards to that, but perhaps that we should have a follow-up meeting with the Federation to see if they have any specifics that we can sort of nail down.
Sounds good. Any other thoughts? Allison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have, from what was discussed, 7 delegation requests. So I can put together not full briefing materials, but I will suggest that I'll put together a report with sort of succinct summary of these to go in front of council. I know that some council members had requested that these sorts of delegations go in front of council so everybody knows what's being asked. and presented. Not everyone obviously attends the conference, but just so that they're aware of what is being presented. So I could bring that forward in December for council's review, and pending that endorsement, I can put together full briefing materials.
So Allison, do you have enough for the actual requests, like to submit requests? Like, do we have to, how much detail do we have to provide when we submit the requests for the delegations?
Through you, Madam Chair. We just need a real summary. There's going to be a few things that you mentioned here, Ministry of Agriculture and whatnot, that I'll probably follow up with you on getting some details in terms of the delegation requests. But I think we can move forward with this.
Well, I think some of them too, like the MTO, those can kind of go together. Like the Bishopsgate and maybe a request specific to Highway 24 if there's something specific. So yeah, I don't know that we necessarily need to meet with the Ministry of Agriculture unless we thought there was something specific. I think their concerns were mostly about the highway, which would be under MTO. So that might eliminate one for us if we need to stroke some off the list. Okay, anything further on our Roma conference delegation request before we move on? Okay. All right, so 5.2, Spencer, I shall turn it over to you for government relations approach and tactics.
Through you, Madam Chair. So I've compiled some preliminary research on different avenues Government Relations Committee could do for engaging with federal and provincial representatives. I have ranked the level of effort, cost, and potential impact that each could have, as well as I just provided some examples of other municipalities, what they have done, just for the committee's consideration.
Okay, discussion on the document that Spencer has put forward. Councillor Oakley.
Through the chair, sort of along what we were just talking about with where we've heard some advocacy points from BFA, and I had some conversation with both chambers of commerce about this. I think the idea of having a stakeholder roundtable meeting, even if it doesn't include the MP and MPP at that, if it's just us to bring to then this committee for delegation materials, I think would be a great idea, just so that we can get all the voices of the room, chambers of commerce, various service groups, federations, so on, and be able to sort of hash it out with them on what sorts of advocacy points we should take. I think is a great idea, even if we don't get the MP and MPP to that because they're busy, we can then translate that to our work here at this committee.
Excellent, thank you, Councillor Oakley. Any other thoughts? Mariela, do you have any thoughts on the stuff that Spencer's collected here for us?
No, I think it's great work. I think roundtables are always a good idea. Sometimes I think it's better without the MPs and the MPPs just because they sit back and take everything back, but they don't sometimes contribute. They just listen. And so I think it's a great idea. We got a lot done when we did the last roundtable with the OPP and the paramedics and everything on police services board. So they do work. So that's great.
Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, further to the rest of the items, I'm not sure we'll get much value out of the hospitality suite, given that we're not a larger municipality, and it's a lot of investment for no guarantee that we're actually going to have. Like, we have to invest ahead of time in the hospitality suite, hope that ministers or members of the government agree to come meet us, and then we might just sit around with, it empty, which wouldn't be great. But I think there's lots of value in particularly the Queen's Park Day. The Parliament Hill, I also think, would be valuable, but we would need to be more targeted in what we're asking for. And those also have the guarantee of hopefully we're organizing it so we know for a fact that we're going to be meeting with people. So I think those are worthwhile, and we should certainly look into doing that. I think probably early in next year, given that it's looking like we might have 2 elections next year. So it might be good to get in there early. Further to that, I think there is value in the government relations consulting services. I'm not sure we'll be able to fit it in this year's budget, but in a future year, perhaps. I think that's definitely worth looking at. We get lots of value out of SCORE for a relatively low investment, and I think it's proven its worth. So I think that, yeah, I think that is a proven value there. And of course, inviting representatives, I think, is also worth the effort, if and when we can get people to come out.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on the. I feel like the hospitality suite could work, but you almost need it in conjunction with the consulting services because you have focused people who are going to try and guarantee you get people into the room. So maybe that's something to consider down the road. But I do really like the Queen's Park idea myself. We do that with work, and it's nice when you get those 10-15 minutes to sit down face to face with a bunch of different representatives. It also gives kind of easy access to all of the parties, and there's definitely value in that, and having more than one group that can carry our message forward to whatever ministries we're dealing with. I think we probably already do a little bit of the advocacy letters and briefing notes to an extent. So that's probably something we should keep doing, and as well as the invitations. One thing that I would like to see is perhaps really kind of maybe setting up some targeted meetings with our other MPPs and MPs for the county, just to try and strengthen those relationships. So, with MPP Hardeman, Riddell in Cambridge, currently Brian May, but I know we're working on trying to get to know Dan Muse, who's the current Conservative in the riding next door that'll absorb North Brant. And then there's a new MP in Oxford as well that perhaps it would be beneficial to at least do a bit of a meet and greet with those individuals and have them remind them that we're part of their crew as well. Yeah, no, I think, Spencer, this is great. This document we put together. I think it's something we can kind of hold on to, and if we're looking for something different, we can always refer back to it and say, hey, maybe we should do one of those hospitality suites at some point. Alison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the direction to staff is to move forward with potentially Queen's Park Day, sort of status quo with what we do with advocacy letters, briefing notes, setting up other meetings with additional MPs, MPPs in the area, and a stakeholder roundtable meeting. My only sort of caution on some of this, I may have to come back just because we don't have anybody dedicated to any kind of government relations, and some of these may be kind of time intensive for staff. So I may have to come back with some assessment of what it's going to take for us to get this done.
Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, through the chair to the CAO. As part of that, is it worth, if we're doing the assessment of what the cost and investment in terms of current staff time, also while we're at it, looking at doing a comparative with having the consulting services at the same time, and then potentially send one or both of those off to our budget process this year?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's sort of exactly where I'm going. It may be something, depending on the sort of appetite of this committee and subsequently council, on whether we want to consider even a part-time government relations staff person who could do a lot of this. A lot of it is just time-intensive work, but somebody who knows their way, sort of around that, may be beneficial and more cost-effective than actually hiring a consulting service.
All right, any further thoughts? Mayor Bailey?
Madam Chair, I think if I think the meeting with our MPs and our MPPs, to get to know them better and have them know us better, because it's not that we don't know them, we call them on occasion, but I think we need to know them all. Because I think that I think sometimes we're so narrow-minded about who we think our MPs and MPPs are that we don't know that we have other resources that may have different ways of thinking that are just as important and have just as much clout at the table. So I think that meeting's maybe even the most important, so that that we already get them working on other things that we're thinking about.
Well, and I think further to that point, part of it is that we have such small parts of their ridings that we're easy to forget, and if we're not a squeaky enough wheel, then they're just like, oh, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
We'll let the MPP and the MP for Brantford Brant kind of take point, which, I mean, they have the majority of the county, but for sure, if we have the opportunity to have 3 voices at the provincial and 3 voices at the federal level, if we can leverage that, I think that's a great idea. Okay, so if there's nothing more on that one, thank you, Spencer, for putting that all together. I will turn it over to CAO Newton for the bi-council meeting with Six Nations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm happy to report, following direction from the last committee meeting, that there is now a bi-council meeting with Six Nations scheduled for December 11th. Should be in all your calendars. We are just nailing down the location right now, given most people have responded that they are attending, which is great, but we're probably up to about 40 people, including staff. So obviously we're not going to do it here as we originally thought we might. So I should have that nailed down by the end of the week. I think we're either looking at Bethel, the Bethel Community Hall, or River's Edge. So we're just looking at availability. I thought Kingsville Community Center would have been a great option, but unfortunately it's booked already for a corporate party. So again, we're just nailing down some of those final details. But what I did want to discuss today is putting together an agenda. We don't have a lot of time with them, with Jenner included there. So I think it's a good idea. This is the inaugural meeting, really. So a lot of it will be relationship building and getting to know one another. But if we could have 1 or 2 sort of focused items for discussion that we would like to have on the agenda for that evening, I'd like to get those nailed down so that we can have an agenda in front of them. Again, I don't think it should be too lengthy. I don't think it should be too heavy that evening. But I think we do want to focus our attention in one direction or another. So.
Any thoughts, Mabrelli?
Yeah, I think through you, Madam Chair, to committee, I think that our relationship with Six Nations is very good right now, and I think that they're invited tomorrow night to the lighting of the tree here, Jingle Bell Night. The chief is coming, and they're going to be bringing things that represent their way of doing things with them, and we've talked a lot about having combined efforts on the trails and on the different parts of things in the county. I think this is a good chance to let them know that it doesn't always have to be so structured, the relationship we're looking for with them. It doesn't always have to be, it just needs to be a circulation of the county brand and Six Nations starting to be more present on each other's properties or nations, or I think we just need to invite them to more casual things. Because I think that's what they want. They feel that there's borders between the county of Brant and Six Nations, which there are, but they don't want to feel that way. They said they want to feel like they're welcome in the county of Brant, and a lot of them surprised me by telling me that that they shop here and they're here more than we think. And I think that we need to work on the fact that it's really no different whether you're on this side of the river or that side of the river, or whether you're in the county of Brant or Six Nations. I think we should start trying to tear down that wall and that stigma of a wall and invite them to everything that we invite everyone else to. and not make it a sort of a taboo or something that we're a little bit frightened of. Because I'm not frightened of any of the relationships that I've made at Six Nations, and every time I bring anything to them, they're always excited to say yes. And when we have functions where they're at an event in Brantford, they always sit with the county. They always chat with the county, and they do want to be close to the county, and I feel that. So I don't know, maybe we can just put it on the agenda that we want more than just structured items. We want them to be part of the county of Brant in a casual way. I hope I'm saying that right. I just think that we should invite them to more things more often. Yeah, I do. I don't think everything should be around the table. It should be socially too, because they really have a fondness for the county of Brant. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why this council seems more willing to sort of snuggle up to us, but I like the fact that they want to. So I don't know how we can put that in an agenda item, but I just think it's something that's very real. You don't have to use the word snuggle.
Allison?
Through you, Madam Chair, I will strike the word snuggle from the agenda. Maybe I'm just thinking of how to position this in the agenda, and I want to be cognizant that this is a public meeting because it will be a meeting of councils. So it will be advertised. It will be advertised as non-streaming. However, members of the public can attend. So I want to be able to give some indication of what is on the agenda, just for transparency. If you can indulge me, maybe I will wordsmith that a little bit to talk about priority setting and if they could maybe express to us what their priorities are, and if we could talk about ways that we can collaborate more on public events.
Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, through the chair to the CAO, and perhaps these items are a bit too heavy for this type of meeting, but I'm curious if there's not opportunities to work together with Six Nations on a couple things like social housing through both of our economic development corporations. Six Nations is doing fantastic, like really incredible stuff as it comes to affordable housing. And on the flip side, we have lots of great expertise as it comes to green energy, and I think there's some opportunities there. And furthermore, I know as well, reading the news lately, that one of Chief Hill's priorities is addressing the lack of clean water for much of their residents. And I'm curious if, and maybe again, this is too heavy of a topic for just this meeting, but if there's not ways we can partner there for where we have water to be able to bring it in, things like that, and partner in the future to help alleviate that issue for them.
Through you, Madam Chair. Again, just thinking this through, I estimate that we'll have about an hour of discussion. Again, so I'm wondering if maybe a more efficient way of doing this, again, is opening it up to a roundtable. So I think we're going to have an open roundtable anyway of introductions, because not everybody has met personally, so that everyone knows who each other is. And then maybe it is more of an open discussion about, what are everybody's respective ideas on what we can collaborate on. And then, hopefully by the end of the meeting, be able to narrow them down to one or two, which we can actually start tackling. We're not going to be able to do everything, but if we can get some common denominators out of that discussion, then maybe those are some things that we can direct staff to move forward with at the end of that meeting as far as action items.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea, and maybe even just like a couple of questions to help facilitate the discussion and have it be more of a round table. I like that idea as kind of the initial, because then maybe it will lead down to some of those more in-depth or heavy issues that Councillor Oakley suggested. I know one of the other things that came to my mind is, I know on our council agendas, we now have our land acknowledgement, but I personally would be curious to know what their thoughts are on that. Is that enough? Is it something that they don't like? Is the wording right? Is it wrong? Should we? So again, maybe not a topic for that night, but if we can build that relationship, I think that's something we could work on them with to ensure that whatever our reconciliation actions are, that they're appropriate for what our closest neighbors, what they see as reconciliation. Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, to Madam Chair, they have already told us that they don't like our land acknowledgement. And it was hard to hear because we worked so hard on it, and they took extra time to get what they thought was right, because they wanted it to be right. They didn't want it to be lengthy. They wanted it to be, we wanted it to be exactly, and we worked with Six Nations to develop it. Did you know that? So they actually helped us develop it, and then they don't like it for some reason, and I would like to know that. So I think maybe if we could maybe even talk to Six Nations before the meeting and have them have something to show us that would be more appropriate, or that they feel is more appropriate, instead of because I mean, if we just ask that question, they're going to say that, because two of them will be there for sure that have told me they don't like it. They're just going to say that we don't like it, or we don't think that you spent enough time on it, or something, which just isn't the truth. We took extra time. That's why it was so late in being bringing it to us, because we wanted to get it right. So I'm not sure how you'd want to do that, whether you want to reach out first and find out what their objections are, so that they maybe have something ready for us and they can offer it to us as something that's more acceptable to them.
Alison?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that was Kayla Cheeseman, worked diligently on that. And again, I'm cognizant of the fact that it's not only Six Nations, it's also Mrs. August of the Credit. And she worked with both of them, and it was a really long time getting to that. And I don't think either of them loved it at the end. I think we got it to a place where everyone was okay with what the final product was. Keeping in mind that was the former council also. So maybe because it is such a sensitive topic that took more than a year to get where it was, I might suggest that that can actually be a staff action item that we can have them reach out and sort of revisit that, because I think it should be something we revisit on a regular basis anyway, and that we can start that, and then I don't know that we'll have something by December 11th, but at least start that discussion, and that's something at least we can speak to that night, that it's going to be something that we're starting to revisit.
Yeah, I like that, because it is one of those things where lots of organizations come up with a land acknowledgement, and then it just becomes routine, and it kind of loses that sincerity. So it's probably something that, to your point, regularly we should be checking in with both Six Nations and Mississaugas of the Credit, just to make sure that it's time appropriate, that it's what they want to hear at this point in time, things change, that type of thing. So I like that idea. Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, and again, Madam Chair, I almost feel badly that they did tell us they didn't like it. We didn't do anything about it. That's sort of what I'm thinking. When someone tells you that it's not exactly what they were hoping you were going to say, and then you didn't change it, I'm not sure that we maybe should have worked on it as soon as I told someone that they didn't really like it very much. They didn't say they hated it. They're glad that we have one. I mean, some people don't even do that. So I don't think I don't think ours is horrible at all. I think it's very good. And obviously the people that did it thought it was very good. And they consulted with the right people, or they thought they consulted with the right people. So I just don't want to throw it out there and have something negative come back right away. I think the more casual this meeting can be, the better it's going to turn out, because an hour does slip away and you start doing introductions and things like that. You've got 15 minutes and then setting up the meeting, or you're not getting started on time, and all of a sudden it's over. And I would hate to think that we didn't talk about things that were really important when an hour will go so fast. We might feel like we came out of it wishing that it was a longer meeting. I know that it was supposed to be a longer meeting, and they asked for it to be a shorter meeting. So I just know how fast an hour goes.
Awesome.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to suggest that I put together a draft agenda based on what I've heard. I can circulate it to this group, and there's one more thing I would maybe add for a discussion around: do we want this to be a regularly scheduled occurrence? I don't know their thoughts. I don't know our council's thoughts either on whether we want to try to do this twice a year, or not at all, or more frequently. I'd like to get a sense of that so that we don't walk away from that meeting and nobody knows when and if we're going to meet again. So it might be nice to get everyone's thoughts on whether we want to make this more of a regular occurrence, is that we get together on, like I said, once or twice a year. Maybe we alternate locations, that type of thing.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good idea. Okay, anything else on that meeting before we move on? Seeing none. Okay, so that brings us to other business. Does anyone have anything? I realized I had two very brief things that I forgot to put on, so if you'll indulge me. I just wondered, so at this point in time, our Government Relations Committee meets at the call of the chair, so just when we decide that there's something to talk about, do we like that meeting schedule, or do we think we should be trying to have something a little bit more, just so we all know and we're not scrambling to get a last minute meeting put together? Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, I'm personally fine with the flexibility of it. Since it's such a small group of people, it's relatively easy for us to find a time that works for three of us. If it was a larger committee, 5, 6 people, that might be more of a problem, but I think it's a relatively agile committee, and I think it allows us flexibility, and also to ensure that we're not meeting when we really don't have much to say. So,
Mayor Bailey?
I think more importantly than how often we meet, I think that we need to make sure that we ask council if there's anything they want to bring to this committee before we take this committee further. Like, have we asked council if there's any other ministers we should be speaking to? Have we done that? Is there something that Councillor Chambers thinks we should be talking about to another minister, or is this committee not responsible? I just think that if there was one more council, even if we put it on the agenda for our next council meeting, under new business, is there anything, the convention's coming up or the conference is coming up, is there anything, but then it's kind of too late to schedule the ministers after that. But I'm just wondering whether, Councillor Garneau might say, well, I really would have liked us to, I don't know.
Alison?
Just through you, Madam Chair. So historically, we haven't formalized the process of delegations through council, and so I am suggesting that that's why I put together that briefing, bring it forward in December, so that council has something to respond to. If they're fine with it, then no harm done. And I think that's their opportunity to potentially add things. Add their 2 cents and make sure that when we do attend these conferences as delegations, we are speaking as a united voice, because our council has seen the delegation materials. So I am going to suggest that we do that as a matter of routine through this committee, moving forward for all of our delegations at future conferences.
Yeah.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, yeah, I think that's a good strategy, and I think sort of along what Mayor Bailey was saying as well, making sure that we can do that a bit earlier, I suppose, so that when it comes to council, we'll have our preliminary list. The three of us will come up with a preliminary list, and if there are any changes, any additions, council can add them there, and we'll still have time to do that. Because I think Mayor Bailey is exactly right. We got an email from Councillor Bell, but we don't necessarily have emails from everybody on where they think we should be. But I do think there's value in us having this meeting ahead of time to sort of create a short list, just to focus the discussion ahead of it going to council.
Maybe a question for you, Allison. Would A, is there time, and B, would there be value in even just a verbal update at whatever our next committee meeting, with, you know, where we have the whole of council there, where we could just say, here's a quick recap of what we're putting in requests for. Is there anything that anyone thinks we're missing? And then let them know that there'll be a more fulsome briefing report come forward with what the topics would be. But I don't know if that's maybe a way we can kind of salvage this one, but then, yeah, going forward, maybe we plan it earlier for more input from council.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. And I think we'll always have a little bit of this problem because they only open up, you know, delegations weeks before. I think that, you know, I'm hoping that we can use Roma as a bit of a template and reuse this as, you know, this is our sort of 2025 agenda of items that we're going to delegate on. You know, hopefully future conferences, it wouldn't be as much work. It's more, you know, doing it up front. That being said, if committee is in agreement, I can get something, I believe I can get something straight to council in November, which would meet our deadline to get forward, and it would give council an opportunity to both consider it, add items, and approve it that evening ahead of the deadline for Roma.
Really?
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, the other thing we've done before is to, because I know that if we were to go around the table, I would assume, with Councillor McAlpine being the incoming chair of John Noble Home with the construction of the new units and stuff, even if we had letters, because we've done that too, we've hand delivered letters. So if Councillor McAlpine wants it to go to the long-term care and Councillor Miller wants to talk about laying cable, we could have letters drawn up and we could just hand deliver them to all the different delegations. And that's good too. It's better than an email because it's something we actually, and that can just be a letter. So if John wanted, you know, something talked about to the minister, I mean, I don't mind dropping them off at different delegations, or you and I, or whatever, as long as the letter was signed by this committee. And maybe the county too, maybe your name and my name on it, just showing that it went through council, is it right? And then showing whatever councillor was showing interest, have their name on it too. It's better than an email. It seems they'll keep it, and when I handed it to Rickford last time, I got a call back. So I didn't get a delegation with him, but I did get a call back from his office because of the letter.
Any further thoughts on that? Okay. And then the only other thing I had was just a follow-up question about North Dumfries. Have we heard from them? I know they had talked about potentially wanting to do a bit of a meet and greet sometime this fall. So I didn't know if we'd heard back from them at all on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I haven't heard back. I did have a brief conversation with their CAO, but it was on a separate item. But I can follow up with him and try to set something up. I don't know if it'll happen this fall yet. You know, everybody's calendars are filling up already. But I can certainly follow back and then send an email again to this committee just to let them know.
Perfect. That's wonderful. I mean, the other alternative too is maybe we try and organize something if there's a group of them going to Roma. Whoever our counselors are that are going to Roma and theirs, maybe we could do dinner or lunch or something, coffee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I can, again, I'll certainly follow up on that, and it sort of maybe leads into another point, and it was brought up in Spencer's background research that he did about our roundtables with surrounding municipalities. One of the things that I've been thinking of as we've been working through our archaeology issues and whatnot is it would really be beneficial, I think, for us to, if not be united, at least be aware of what other municipalities are thinking on this topic. And if that leads to more of a united voice, then I think that would be great. I think it would take us a lot further on this topic than if we were to try to do it alone and we don't really know what everyone else thinks or is doing on it. So maybe we can use that discussion with North Dumfries to maybe even talk about a very targeted, broader approach with other municipalities, sort of in the Haldimand Tract.
It's a great idea. Okay, anything else for Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, and the same sort of note as meeting with North Dumfries and Sue Foxton, just because the situation at SCORE is a little bit delicate, and I don't know what's going to happen with SCORE. No one really does. I think we should have more of a relationship with Oxford too, because they're very much like us. They have obviously the Woodstock Council, and then they have all the people that represent all the different pieces that become Oxford. So I would like to know them too. I would like to, because we know them from, we know, and even Norfolk. Everyone knows the mayors, but we don't know the councillors. And some of them only have 4 councillors or 5 councillors, and it's not as hard as you think to get them together too. So we do see them at conferences, but I think people like Norfolk, Oxford, that have a main, Woodstock and Paris, and then all the little towns that they have, like the St. George's and the Burfords, and they're very much like us, and they have the same issues and problems. So I think we should keep doing all that kind of stuff. I know there's only so many meetings we can do and all of that, but I think that if we make better neighbors, not better neighbors, know our neighbors better, I think it's good for us. I think it's good for us because everyone has a suggestion. And I know that I had dinner with a former mayor, Crystal Chop, and I learned a lot from that even. I know she's not the mayor anymore, but she still knows things. And she still had lots of advice for me and lots of direction for me. So I think we should just do more of that kind of stuff, whether it's South Dumfries or North Dumfries or Oxford or whatever, Haldimand. I'm having lunch with the mayor of Haldimand on next Thursday, Aunt Shelley. And so I think those kinds of things we should do. And it shouldn't always just be the mayor and the mayor. It needs to be the mayor and a couple of councillors and mayor and a couple of their councillors. It just widens the relationship between the different municipalities. So I hope we do more of that.
Well, yeah, and along the same lines, we talked a little bit earlier about Highway 24. There's perhaps some joint advocacy we could do on a road like that with North Dumfries and Cambridge, and even City of Brantford at times. So sometimes more voices are more powerful when we're trying to get something done, that's for sure. Okay. Okay, if there's nothing further, then that brings us to number 7, which is our next meeting, which will be at the call of the chair, probably sometime in preparation for Roma, I would anticipate. So yeah, with that, I'm looking for someone to adjourn. Councillor Oakley.